Hey, Lowell from Gamer Guides here, back with another Forza Horizon 6 video. In this one, I'm going to show you how to get 3 stars in all drift zones in the game, even if you suck at drifting. Which I do. I'm terrible at it, but still managed to get 3 stars in all drift zones in the game, which means maybe I got good? I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to show you all 20 drift zone attempts in this video, but rather show you how anyone can go from this to this. I'm going to skip over heavily tuning cars for drifting, as that's kind of advanced stuff and not necessary for grabbing those coveted 3-star clears. As such, these tips will work on every single drift zone, so much so that even my Shiba Zelda could manage clearing them all. So here's how. First, you need a drift-ready car. Any car can be tuned and upgraded into one in theory, but this is a painstaking process if you don't know what you're doing. Fortunately, you can purchase cars that drift super easily at the auto show right from the rip. I purchased this Toyota Corolla hatchback, which is available very early on in the game and is good enough for hitting 3 stars in the first 6 or 7 drift zones. After you obtain Horizon wristbands and unlock more events and challenges, more drift cars will become available. I soon upgraded to this Nissan Z, as the hatchback was a bit too difficult to keep sideways and slow for the increasingly difficult challenges. I recommend experimenting to find one that fits you best, as some will require consistent use of the handbrake to start drifting, while others are so touchy that they'll basically drift for you whenever you accelerate. If you're still struggling, it's not a bad idea to take part in the Drift Club Japan story events, as they can teach you the basics with borrowed cars. I eventually settled on this BMW 2035i that became available when I obtained the second to last purple wristband. I found it easier to control than this 2020 Lotus that comes with a VIP membership that Playground Games gifted us. And I continued to use the BMW for the rest of the game, partially because it says "Sir Please" on the back, and I find that amusing. Anyway, once you've selected a car, you're going to want to hop into the settings menu and turn a few things off that make drifting more difficult. Turn braking to anti-lock off, traction control to off, and stability control to off. All 3 of these give you less control while you're drifting and try to correct you when you're skidding out. Next, switch shifting to manual. I played most of the game on automatic, but for drifting you really want to control your speed. Feel free to switch all these back on when you're not trying to complete a drifting-based challenge. With that out of the way, here's how to hit 3 stars in every drift zone in Forza 6. You pretty much have 3 tools at your disposal to keep a drift going: acceleration, letting off the gas, and the handbrake. Depending on the car, you'll want to use some of these more than the others. For the Toyota hatchback, I needed to use the handbrake constantly. However, for the BMW 235i, I never really needed to touch it unless I was trying to avoid a burnout. Instead, I had to lay off the gas quite often with the BMW 235i, while wiggling the control stick back and forth to maintain a consistent drift, especially during straight stretches of road. For all the drift cars I piloted, I typically kept it in 2nd or 3rd gear so I didn't gain too much speed and lose control, but sometimes shifted to 4th gear while going uphill. You'll have to get a feel for your car of choice. In order to rack up enough points to hit 3 stars, you should know that you get more points for maintaining a more sideways drifting angle and a decent speed. This is important because drift zones you unlock later will pretty much require you to be drifting at all times to hit their 3rd star point threshold. It's a good idea to run through the course first and get a sense of where the turns and bends are. Likewise, you're going to be wobbling down stretches of road to keep your drift points accumulating. It looks a little silly, but it's necessary unless you're good enough to maintain a single drift for the entire stretch. But remember, we suck, so wobble away. When you hit some steep turns, it's not the worst thing in the world if you venture outside the boundaries of the drift zone flags into the trees. This won't immediately disqualify you unless it's the last 2 drift flags. However, if you start to burn out, to turn all the way around, quickly make use of the rewind tool and try said curve again to avoid failure. In fact, especially as you're learning, don't be afraid to rewind constantly in order to get the feel for a certain curve. You're going to want to take them as wide as possible, but sometimes that isn't an option based on your trajectory as you wobble into a turn. Seriously, be kind to yourself and rewind. Anyone remember that slogan from the VHS days? No? Anyway, with all that said, you still might have trouble getting 3 stars. I certainly did in some late game drift zones, while others I cleared on my first try. I found taking a break to complete some other challenges or viciously commit mascot murder before making another attempt a great way to kind of reset and defrustrate myself before trying again. So before I wrap up, a couple more tips. I found that drift zones on steeper inclines were easier to manage coming from the bottom because your vehicle will not accelerate as fast going uphill. If you start your drift before you pass through the first 2 drift zone flags, it sometimes won't start registering points until you begin drifting again, so try and time a first drift into a second drift right when you enter. And finally, it might not be the best idea to upgrade your drift car because it might make it too fast and unwieldy. You can reset a car to its base model in the upgrades menu of any given vehicle. And yeah, that's all you need to know to drift well enough to get 3 stars in Forza Horizon 6 if you suck at doing so. By the way, you should also check out the amazing interactive map our team put together over at GamerGuides.com proper. We consistently have the best maps around, no joke, and the Forza one has everything you could ever want to find marked down. Anyway, if you found this video at all helpful or think Zelda back there is really cute, maybe like or subscribe so we can continue on our quest to fulfill all your gaming needs here at GamerGuides.